Welcome to the Play-by-Play with Patrick and Brandon. You're a home for updates and insights into the sports world. Welcome back to the Play-by-Play. As always, I'm Patrick. I'm here with Brandon. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited. We got a lot to talk about today. Some new stuff, some old stuff from episode one, and some fan questions to answer at the end of the episode. So look forward to that. But before we get into it, I just want to take another second to say a huge thank you to Will Blaylock. He came on the podcast last episode, episode two. If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly encourage it. Um, he was a professional player for 8 years, has a super strong mind for the game, had some great stories, some great takes, and he was just all around an amazing guy. So we're looking forward to eventually having him back on the podcast. And once again, just huge thank you.
Absolutely. If you're a basketball junkie, that episode is an absolute must listen, must watch. If you like hearing about, especially like ball from back in the 2000s, some pretty cool name drops, some pretty cool stories that we'll have to tell. So definitely check that one out.
All right, you ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Where are we going to start?
So I think I want to touch on the French Open real quick. The French Open just occurred, and by no means am I a tennis expert, but
Neither am I.
it was a pretty crazy event. In both the men's and women's singles finals, we had some pretty cool comebacks. I think I want to start with the men's final, where Carlos Alcaraz completed an 0-2 comeback in a best of five series to win the men's final in the French Open. And the final set was an absolute duel. He was playing Yannick Sinner, and those two guys went down to the wire in the final set. It was super entertaining, super fun to watch. And I think it was a great thing for tennis too, because a lot of like the household names from the tennis world are kind of gone right now. Federer's gone, Djokovic is winding down, Serena Williams is gone. So to see just great competitive duels is really good for the sport. But we also had the women's final in which Coco Gauff completed an 0-1 comeback in a best of three set series against Arina Sabalenka. And Brandon, I know you wanted to talk about this a little bit because some stuff happened after the final itself that makes this more of an interesting story.
Yeah, in a sport that I feel like for the most part stays pretty respectful, there was some, quote unquote beef between the two competitors in the final match. Uh, Sabalenka and Coco Gauff not on the best of terms after. In Sabalenka's press conference following the loss, she sort of insinuated that Coco Gauff didn't win the match, she lost. To be fair to Sabalenka, she did commit an uncharacteristic amount of errors. Um, but Coco Gauff does deserve the credit for winning. And after the match, seeing that sort of disrespect from the uh, the loser kind of comes off as a bit of a sore loser. But overall, I think it was a very good match. I got to catch a little bit of it and watched a little bit of the highlights. Not a tennis aficionado by any means, but to just give you a summary on what Sabalenka said, she sort of said, I think she won the match not because she, referring to Coco Gauff, played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes from, if you look at the outside, easy balls. Um, Gauff said, I don't agree with that after Sabalenka implied that someone who lost the semifinals, um, Iga Swiatek, could have beaten her. Coco Gauff said, last time I played her, I beat her in straight sets. So not on the best of terms after, but Sabalenka did sort of walk her comments back a little bit and eventually congratulated Gauff on her championship win. So
It's kind of crazy to see. I mean, it's just not something you really expect from a sport like tennis. With that being said, it's another thing that I think is going to be really good for the sport in the long run. I think rivalries can never really hurt a sport. I mean, that's how you build up, viewership. That's how you build up attention. So definitely be interesting to see where that goes moving forward. I'd definitely like to see them play again, especially if Sabalenka thinks she did not play her best tennis. So that's gonna be pretty interesting moving forward. We have another pretty fun little story. This time coming out of the MLB. So the Milwaukee Brewers pretty good baseball team all around. I believe as of right now, they're 37 and 33 on the season, so they are over 500. Not one of the best teams in the MLB, but they're doing their thing. The resurgence of Christian Yelich has helped them a lot. But what I want to talk about today is Aaron Savale. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. So he was, and I emphasize was, a Brewers pitcher just a couple days ago. Not a great pitcher by any means. He was pretty mediocre. And so he gets sent to the bullpen in favor of someone else. And he immediately requests a trade. And so the very next day after this news went public, he does get the trade he wanted, but I don't think he went where he would have liked because he's now on the White Sox. And for people who don't know baseball, the White Sox are 23 and 46. So probably a bottom three team in the MLB. Brandon, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think of too many MLB franchises that have had less success in recent years than the Chicago White Sox. I think right now the only team that I could say is definitively worse than them is the Colorado Rockies, who are on pace to lose the most games ever in an MLB season. But it's always funny with the way player team relations have sort of evolved in many different sports. Players, getting antsy, calling for trades, demanding to be sent somewhere else. It is always kind of ironic to see someone hold out for a trade, publicly call for something, and kind of an example of be careful what you wish for, because I don't think there are too many players in the MLB today who would be, pining for a trade to the Chicago White Sox right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I think this is just straight up childish behavior. I kind of think he got what he deserved on this one because he just got sent to the bullpen a couple days ago, and you think like you're a professional athlete, so you should have the poise to, take that on the chin and, go back to the lab, do some work, get yourself ready to hopefully get your starting position back, especially where pitchers rotate a lot. Like you're switching up your guys all the time just to try and keep people fresh. So I mean, for all we know, it could have just been a couple days thing. I mean, maybe he had information that we don't. But this was just a funny story that I wanted to bring up. With that, I do believe it's time to return to some of the things we talked about in our first episode. A lot of big things going on. We made some predictions. Some were right, some were really not. But so I think I want to start with the NHL finals. So as it stands, we are tied up in a 2-2 series. And it's been pretty tight aside from game three. Florida took a really commanding lead in game three. Uh, and there's already been a ton of the games that went to overtime. Game one went to overtime. Edmonton was down. And then through the effort and playmaking of Connor McDavid, they scored a goal to tie it up, and then they won it in overtime. Both assists from him. He didn't score the goals, but it was still pretty impressive. Game two, Florida wins in double OT. Brad Marchand, 2 goals, including the game winner. Game three, obviously, 6-1 Florida. Not much to say there. Just complete domination. And then in game four, we had Edmonton win in overtime again. Um, and the thing I think I want to talk about first is Brad Marchand. We're both Boston guys. And I think he's been the standout of the series to me so far. He has 4 goals, uh, including 2 in the double OT win. Just playing absolutely electric. It's something that I love to see. I mean, he's probably my favorite hockey player of all time. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, Brandon.
Honestly, as a Boston fan, it has been pretty great to see Marchand playing elite hockey, and it just makes that trade, looking back on it, look even better for the Florida Panthers and even worse for the Boston Bruins. If Marchand is capable of playing this level of hockey, it's one of those moments where you'll see it float around online. It's, gee, really wish the Bruins had Marchand. It's a shame they never had a guy like him on the roster. It's like, no, we did. We traded him away, and now he's out there showing out for a different team. So honestly, it hurts a little as a Boston fan to see him playing so well. But like we said in episode one, he was looking to be one of the more important X factors of this series. Would be, oh, Florida made this big pickup. How's he going to play? Is he going to provide a meaningful spot? And so far, he's been playing out of his mind, doing everything the Panthers need him to do. And so far, tied up at 2 apiece, looking to be just as competitive as it was last year. Again, wouldn't be surprised if this one came down to a game 7.
Yeah, it's been a bloodbath so far. It's been really exciting. I mean, aside from just game three domination, it's all been really close. I'm very happy for Brad Marchand. I think my biggest question right now is where is Connor McDavid? Um, he's been setting up his teammates. He's still been playing good hockey, but I don't think he is a goal through 4 games. And on the biggest stage, you'd expect someone like that who's touted as maybe the best player in hockey to show up a little more than that. So I'm curious what you have to say about that.
I think a fair bit of it could be credited to the Florida Panthers having, you know, not to say chippy, but playing a very physical, tough brand of hockey. I think in a lot of respects, the Panthers are right now what the Boston Bruins used to be and used to be known for, which is a team that is equal parts tough and chippy as they are skillful. They've got a lot of guys who are willing to go out there, lay people into the boards, and really, sort of fight for it. And that's been something that can often disrupt a player like McDavid is when you get up on them, when you're physical, when you don't let them move around in open ice. And I think if Edmonton wants to take this series, they will need to see a little bit more goal scoring from Connor McDavid. Um, Not much more to say on that matter. Just gonna have to hopefully, if you're an Edmonton fan, hope that McDavid's sort of clutch factor, his star power, rises to the occasion in these last potential 3 games.
Yeah, I agree. Going into the series, we had both predicted that Florida would win this one. It's definitely been tight and competitive so far. I think I'm sticking with my Florida prediction. I mean, 4 games in, they have the most dominant win. They still look like the better team, even though it's been tight, it's been close. Has your opinion changed, or are you sticking with Florida?
I would still say Florida in 7 is my prediction. However, if you are an Edmonton fan, there is a sort of hope after seeing game 4, not just winning that game, but the way they won after being down 3-zip to come back and win in overtime. You like to see your team come through and show a little bit of fight in that moment because lesser hockey teams get down 3-zip. You might see them give up, start getting pushed off the puck a little bit more. Edmonton definitely played like a team that wanted to be there and a team that knew they had a chance. So coming through in a close game like that, propelling for a victory in overtime is something that I think Edmonton fans should hold on to going into game 5.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting. I expect the next game to be as much of a war as the rest of the series. It's been really fun to watch so far. I'm excited to see how it plays out. Moving on, we got the NBA Finals in a series that's not going the way I think either of us expected so far.
Yeah, I can't say that I saw a Pacers lead in this series at any point coming. Game 1 was definitely, I think, after that initial game, there was sort of a consensus that, oh, maybe this was a fluke. Maybe Indiana just played out of their mind because they did have a huge comeback, the game winner from Halliburton. But game 3 was a different story. There was no big comeback in that game. It was a back and forth competitive matchup, and the Pacers pulled through in the fourth quarter and got a really good win. So if you're OKC, might be time to get a little bit nervous here.
Yeah, so for those that haven't been paying attention to the series, the Pacers are currently up 2 games to 1. They won the first game 111-110 after being down literally the entire game. And then they won it off a game winner from their star, Tyrese Halliburton. Game 2 was a pretty commanding win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it's more of what we expected from this finals series. And we saw SGA drop 34 points and 8 rebounds. Um, and then in game 3, the Pacers won 116-107. So a pretty tight game, but not as tight as the first game, that's for sure. And game 3, I think, can really only be described as the Benedict Mathurin game. He dropped 27 points after being relatively quiet throughout the rest of the series. And I think that's what the Pacers need. Tyrese Halliburton is not necessarily a score first guy. And that's not to say he can't score, but he's always looking to make the pass first. And Pascal Siakam can score, but not one of the most prolific scorers on the planet. So for them to continue their dominance in this series, they're going to need guys like Benedict Mathurin to step up. And I do think that's been the storyline of the series so far is we have guys on the Pacers stepping up to help their stars win these games. And Oklahoma City, who we said definitely has the deeper cast in this series, but SGA has really been doing it all by himself so far. You saw game two was a big game for Alex Caruso, but other than that, none of Shea's supporting cast has stepped up as much as Indiana has.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. And like we said in our first episode, Indiana is going to need help from their bench, from their role players to sort of propel them past a very deep, talented OKC squad. And Benedict Mathurin showing up for them in a big way with 27 points is exactly what they needed at that moment. Although it is worth mentioning that Tyrese Halliburton probably played his best complete game of the series in game three. 22 points, 11 assists, 9 rebounds. Pretty great all around effort, near triple double from him. And I think if you're a Pacers fan, that's the type of effort and that's the type of stat line you want to see Halliburton putting up, getting the ball in the basket a little bit more while still continuing to be a high level distributor for his teammates.
Yeah, I think Tyrese has been playing really well. The scoring's not always going to be there, and that's something we discovered throughout the course of this playoffs. But even when he's not scoring, he's making people around him better, and that's what's impressed me most this series from him. The way he distributes the ball really has benefited them, even getting to guys in the corner to put up their 3-point shots, because they do have shooters on their team. That's been really important. One other thing we brought up in the first episode that I do think it is important to address now is we predicted that the whistle would not be blown that much this series, and that has been the case. You could tell even in game one when SGA took over at the start of the game, he was making it to the rim with ease. But these bumps that were pretty solid contact, probably not fouls, but for him, for FTA, they usually are fouls. And here we are, the whistle's not getting blown. I think the NBA is sending an important message for that one, and that is a little extra adversity for an Oklahoma City team that has lived at the free throw line this season. So now that they're down 2-1, and with that in mind, Brandon, we both expected a pretty dominant series win from the Thunder. Has your prediction changed?
It's tough to say. Definitely not confident for an OKC victory at this point. Looking at the way these first 3 games have shaped up, the whistle not being blown as much for SGA and not as much just in general, I think lends itself more to Indiana's physical style of defense. They were the don't know the term, most penalized team in the playoffs. They gave up the most free throws. Throughout the playoffs, the Pacers have played very physical defense and they have had a tendency to give up a lot of free throws. So the whistle not being blown definitely lends itself to Indiana. And I also think that OKC supporting cast not quite playing up to the standards that they have in these playoffs. In game three, I think the only guy that really put in a solid effort was J-Dub Jalen Williams, had 26 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, shot the ball pretty efficiently. Other than that, inefficient night for Chet Holmgren. Shot like maybe a little bit under 40% from the field, so not what you want to see from him. Lou Dort had an all right game, but Caruso, who was big in game two, wasn't very big in game three. And overall, they just got kind of outplayed. Indiana's had a lot more guys step up. Mathurin was huge for them. Halliburton played a very good game. Pascal Siakam had a very efficient 21 points and 6 boards. So at this point, would not be surprised to see this series also go 7 games. I honestly think it's a toss up as to who wins it, but looking very different from the initial OKC in 5 or 6 prediction. I think basically a coin flip in a game 7 is what we could be looking at here.
Yeah, I think your assessment is pretty accurate. I do think we need to see Oklahoma City supporting cast step up. I mean, Alex Caruso is not someone you'd expect to go crazy like that every single game, and Jalen Williams has been heating up through the series, so I'm excited to see what he does. But we definitely need to see more from Chet Holmgren. I think he's been struggling a little bit and being there, who I'd call the go-to third guy on the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's going to need to step up. At the time of recording, it is currently roughly 6 o'clock p.m. on Friday. So this is being recorded before game four. I do think the Oklahoma City Thunder need to win tonight. It's a must-win game for them. I don't care who you are, unless you're prime LeBron James, you're not coming back from down 3-1 in the NBA Finals. Um, I'm expecting Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to go off tonight. He had a pretty quiet night um, in Game 3. So we'll see what happens with him, but I do think he needs to go crazy tonight in order for them to stay alive. As crazy as it sounds with them being down 2-1, in the face of being down 3-1, my prediction is still going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they're just too talented, too star-studded. But it definitely has been a much better series than I expected, and I'm excited to see how it continues.
I would have to say the same. Definitely, if you're Oklahoma City, your back's against the wall for this game four. Like you said, it's a must win. And SGA throughout these playoffs has shown to be a guy that shows up in big moments. And after shooting a little bit less efficiently than his usual fare, he's around 45% from the field last game. I expect to see Shea attacking the basket. I expect to see him making a lot of tough buckets. And he's going to look to probably try to propel and carry this OKC squad and even up the series.
I agree. I'm even going to make a bold prediction and go so far as to say we can expect a 40 piece from him tonight. I think they
Would
need
not
it.
surprise me.
I think they need to set the tone, and I'm excited to watch the game after we finish up here. Moving on, we have an event that I know you were paying very close attention to, UFC 316. We had Marab submit Sugar Sean O'Malley in the main event, and Kayla Harrison submitted Juliana Pena in the co-main. Couple of great fights. I'm curious to see what you have to say about these.
Yeah, this was a big night for the UFC. A lot of implications as to where both the men's and women's bantamweight divisions were looking to move. And if you're a Sugar Sean O'Malley fan, you're crushed right now. In the lead up to the fight, he talked a lot about how he had wrestled for this camp. He didn't have an injured hip, so he was training a lot more with his grappling, and he got dominated. He did not get off any sort of really successful striking against Marab, and Marab dominated the pace, dictated where the fight was, and for someone that's not typically known for his ability to finish a fight, Dvalishvili getting the submission in round three is a dangerous, dangerous implication for where that division's headed. Because if you are a bantamweight contender, you don't want to fight Marab. He is an absolute beast. His cardio is second to none in his division, in the UFC right now, possibly in the UFC's entire history. His relentless pace, his grappling, his striking is much improved. His hands he looks a lot more comfortable standing up. And the submission threat that wasn't there in the last couple of fights he's had, being there against Sean O'Malley, that is a dangerous facet to his game, and he's going to look to probably dominate that division until he literally gets too old to fight. And as far as the women's bantamweight division, Kayla Harrison steamrolled Juliana Pena. I sort of predicted that happening. Kayla Harrison's a credentialed grappler, two-time gold medalist, judo world champion. She looked like an absolute beast out there. And after the fight, called out the recently retired former bantamweight champ Amanda Nunes. So that is definitely the fight to make after UFC 316. You'll have Kayla Harrison with her gold medals and her UFC belt going up against the greatest women's mixed martial artist of all time, former two-division UFC champ, absolute killer. Very excited to see that fight go on. And just taking a look at the title picture at 135 for the men's and at a couple of fights that happened earlier in the card, 135 is in a weird spot right now. With Marab being a dominant champ and Sugar Sean having two consecutive losses, they need a new title challenger. And as of right now, it's looking to come down between two names, Piotr Jan and Corey Sandhagen. These guys have fought before. Piotr Jan won a decision, I believe, back at UFC 267. However, Piotr Jan also went on a pretty rough losing streak. He's built his way back, and as of right now, Jan is riding a two-fight win streak, while Corey Sandhagen is coming off of a one-fight winning streak. Both guys are claiming that they're next in line. I would lean towards Sandhagen because Piotr Jan already fought
Really?
Marab. Yes, Piotr Jan already fought Marab Dvalishvili, and Marab beat him 50-45. Corey Sandhagen has never fought Marab, and I think presenting a new title challenger and a new opponent for Marab would be better for the division. I think could Jan eventually get a title shot? Yes, but I believe the next fight to make in that division is Sandhagen versus Dvalishvili.
That's a very
And
interesting take. I mean, I
yeah,
have a hard time disagreeing with you, but my thing with Petr Yan is you talk about his two-fight win streak, and in my eyes, he's maybe the hardest hitter in the division.
he has
Um,
really crisp boxing too. He's no
yeah,
denying he's talented.
like he can put anyone to sleep at any moment. That makes for an exciting fight. I don't know if it's the right decision to make, but I'd certainly prefer to see him fight Marab at this point in time.
Yeah, it's tough. It's both guys have really legitimate claims to fighting for the belt next. If you're Piotr Jan, you just beat Devason Figueiredo, who's a former champ at 125, and you also took down a very, very talented fighter in Song Yadong, who's been in the top 10 of the division for, geez, I don't know how long. Two very good wins for Piotr Jan. The big drawback for him is he already fought Marab and he already lost a pretty dominant decision. It was the fight that sent him into a losing skid. It was brutal. Marab just mauled him with his pace. And if you're Corey Sandhagen, you're coming off of unanimous decision loss to Umar Nurmagomedov, but then you knocked Devason Figueiredo out. He did that back in May. That's a pretty decisive statement win for him. And Sandhagen has not fought for a belt since he took on Piotr Jan at UFC 267 for the interim title. So I think if you're the UFC, Corey's an exciting fighter, a new name for the title picture and for Marab's opponents. I think that's what they're going to lean to.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see. We'll have to see how it shakes out. My question for you is you talked about the title picture and what Marab's going to do after his win. What do you think's next for Sugar Sean? Because he loses to Marab and loses his mind, does nothing but complain, complain, complain for weeks. And so then he gets his rematch immediately. He gets the fight he wanted. He talks about how much better prepared he is, and he still loses.
Yeah, if like I said, if you're a Sean O'Malley fan, you're in a rough spot right now. What's weird is even after the rankings update, he's still listed as the number one ranked contender, which I think is an interesting decision. Might be a product of his fan favorite status and his relationship with Dana White. But if you look at these names in the division, Umar Nurmagomedov, I think beats him. I think beats him pretty handily. Umar's striking is crisp. His grappling is probably the second best in the division, only to Marab's. He he already fought Piotr Jan and eked out a really, really close and controversial decision. So I would go out and say a good fight to make if you're not going to have Jan fight for the title. Piotr Jan versus Sean O'Malley too. Piotr Jan has insisted since they fought the first time that he beat Sean O'Malley in the first fight. O'Malley profited off of that win and got vaulted into title contention. So I think a really interesting fight to see would be O'Malley Jan 2. Because if you're Piotr, you beat O'Malley, you're fighting for the title next, without a doubt.
And I think the interesting thing is you talk about Piotr Jan saying he thinks he won that fight. And most of the time you look at fighters saying that and you're really like, get out of here. You're just being a sore loser. Piotr Jan has a pretty serious case for that fight. I mean, one of the main things UFC judges look at is damage dealt. And Piotr Jan beat the crap out of Sean O'Malley in that fight.
He did. They went back and forth. They traded a lot of shots in the pocket. And the real difference maker in that fight from a judging perspective, I believe it all comes down to a knee that O'Malley landed in the third round that cut Jan perfectly, like right, I think it was right over the eyebrow. Blood was spilling everywhere. It looked very good for O'Malley. But if you look at that fight, 3 rounds instead of five, I believe that if they make this fight again, it will probably be a co-main 5 round fight because obviously huge name value there. And Jan was definitely getting the better of the grappling exchanges. He was able to take O'Malley down without too much trouble. So I think that fight goes 5 rounds. I think Piotr Jan definitely has a better chance of winning that. And with the trajectory the two guys are on, that is a really tough fight for Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what's next. Sean O'Malley, definitely a big name, big personality. It's going to be interesting to see what he has to say coming out of the Marab fight and where he goes next. We did have some other combat sports or sports entertainment shenanigans going on this weekend. Money in the Bank in the world of the WWE just occurred this past Saturday, and there were plenty of surprises on that card. A lot of our predictions did not go very well. And then there was another surprise following it on WWE's Monday Night Raw. So, a lot to talk about. I think the first thing I want to address is a fight that we didn't actually talk about going into the event. Becky Lynch fought Lyra Valkyria for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and Becky actually ended up beating the champion. This is the second time they fought in recent memory, and Becky ended up taking the title pretty handily too. It was a good match, but afterwards, Lyra ended up beating the hell out of Becky Lynch again. So something tells me that one's not over. I'll be interested to see where the rivalry goes. Moving on into matches we did make predictions about. Um, the women's Money in the Bank match, we both got it pretty wrong. I know you predicted Rhea Ripley, and I predicted Roxanne Perez, and it ended up going to a name we didn't really talk about, being Naomi. And I can't say I'm upset at the decision. Naomi's been a great worker for the WWE since she returned. I believe at last year's Royal Rumble. She's had some great feuds with Jade Cargill, some great work with Bianca Belair. So it's definitely a very good decision, and I'm interested to see where it goes. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I did not see that one coming at all. I was able to catch a little bit of Money in the Bank and didn't expect it, but like you said, I think it is a good decision, and Naomi's definitely been a huge plus for the company since she returned. So, did I want Rhea Ripley to win? Yes. Was I super upset with Naomi winning? No.
It was a very entertaining match too. Some of the spots were crazy. I think my favorite was Rhea Ripley trying to hit the Razor's Edge on Roxanne Perez, and then there's a pretty brutal counter into a Hurricane Rana onto the ladder. So that was pretty fun.
That was
But
slick.
keeping it moving, the men's Money in the Bank is one we both got right, and I don't really think there was another answer for this one.
Thank
Seth
goodness.
Rollins won the briefcase. Um, no shock there in my eyes. Seth Rollins is one of the biggest stars in the division on the in the men's division. Excuse me. He's done great work for them for years, and in the position he's been put in, it's really hard to keep him without a title for long. And the Money in the Bank briefcase is a straight shot to a title. So I'm excited to see what he has moving forward. If you want to take your time to brag, Brandon, since you got this one right too.
Yeah, definitely. I was excited to see Seth win. I think what's really interesting about him is he's such a big name, such a big personality that he's one of maybe the few guys in the company that doesn't need a title to be in great matches. But when someone's at the top for that long and does such good work, if you're a company, you want to reward the guy, you want to get him into a title match. And I'm interested to see when he cashes in. I feel like, especially with him being in league with Paul Heyman and having those two enforcers, would not be surprised to see the end of a big title match. I would not be surprised to see Seth Rollins cashing in on an exhausted champion, mauling them with Braun Breaker, and then having Paul Heyman hoist the title up and say, "Look at Seth; he's the greatest guy in the company." Um, Excited to see where they go with that.
Yeah, Night of Champions is coming up soon. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But if I were to make a bold prediction right now, CM Punk is fighting John Cena at Night of Champions for John Cena's WWE Championship. And we know Seth Rollins does not like CM Punk very much. So it wouldn't shock me if we see Seth Rollins involve himself in that match. But time will tell as we get closer to the event. The other big match we talked about going into the night was John Cena and Logan Paul versus World Heavyweight Champion Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. And we both predicted John Cena and Logan Paul to get the victory, but we were wrong. Um, no other way to cut that one. We made a pretty pretty bad prediction looking at the match. The good guys ended up eking that one out over the bad guys. Do you have anything you want to say about the match, Brandon?
Very entertaining. I was a little surprised to see Cody and Jay not winning clean. I know there was a little bit of interference in that match, and I definitely didn't call that. Didn't really. I mean, as far as prediction goes, that was a total miss. I did not see that one coming. Still a great match, and I know that this one also sort of had some fallout on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, so the most important part of the match was that although World Heavyweight Champion Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes did win, Jey Uso got pummeled into the ground. He was taking hit after hit after hit all night, and it really showed at the end. I know when I was watching the event, I was sitting there with some of our friends, and they really played this up that Jey Uso was just gone, just dead. And I honestly thought that Seth Rollins was going to bring out the briefcase right then and there,
That would have been
but
crazy.
that didn't happen. However, it did still lead to Jey Uso losing the World Heavyweight Champion to Gunther in the main event of this week's Monday Night Raw. Um, before I get into it, I'm curious to see what you think of the decision and what you think of Gunther moving forward.
Uh, I can't say that I'm shocked that Gunther got the title back. I think Gunther is someone who definitely looks better with a belt on him, and his sort of like brash enforcer, like sort of like strong type, definitely lends himself to being a sort of like heel champion. And if you're Jey Uso, I don't know how many Jey Uso fans there are out there. Certainly very much over, but I know that there's also a crowd that is critical of him, says his in-ring work isn't the best. So I believe his reign was only 50 something days as the world heavyweight champion. So not sure what they're going to do with Jey Uso moving forward. I don't see him taking the Universal Championship, and I don't know what other belt they would give him going forward. So as far as Jey Uso is concerned, I have no clue what the WWE is going to do next. But I think Gunther winning the title back makes a fair bit of sense.
Yeah, as far as Jey Uso goes, Um, I don't know where he's going next either. I mean, I could see a reunion with his brother, Jay and Jimmy Uso. The Usos are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. So a reunion tour coming together would not shock me, especially after riding high off a World Heavyweight Championship reign. But seeing as he just lost it and we haven't seen anything else from him yet, I could be completely wrong. As far as Gunther goes, I'm kind of in the opposite party compared to you. I struggle to see why they did this, and I understand that Gunther is a strong character. He's a good wrestler, but I don't really love him, and I don't love him with the title. And the reason for that is in recent years, he's had two incredibly long title runs. He got the world, and I don't really think he did anything with it. In his two title runs, I can really only think of one, maybe two super memorable, great feuds. The first one that comes to mind is him versus Chad Gable for the Intercontinental Championship years ago. And my eyes made a star out of Chad Gable. But after that, I just don't think Gunther has done anything of note. His character hasn't changed in years. I feel like he's gotten stale. So I am hoping this reigns short. Um, Only time will tell. Seth Rollins could involve himself with Gunther. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen moving forward. We'll keep up with the WWE as we move towards Night of Champions and eventually SummerSlam. But I do think it's time to answer some fan questions. And the submissions today are a mix of pretty great sports questions and then what I can only call goofy. Brandon, are you ready?
Ready as I'm gonna be.
All right. So our first question, well, we had a celebrity submission. So super big, super popular Monkey calls into the show, and we had Diddy Kong all the way from Donkey Kong Country calling in,
Absolutely wild.
and he wants to know where would you rank DK Jungle from the Mario Sluggers games and the all-time stadiums list? So he's clearly a homer. He's asking about his park. And I can't blame him. So before I get into it, what do you think, Brandon?
Uh, I think as far as Mario Sluggers, in terms of stadiums, that's an easy top three for me. If you have it outside of your top three, I think honestly, like it's ridiculous to say that. It is ridiculous to say that. I would say I love Bowser Stadium. I love the basic Mario Stadium, but DK Jungle has a certain amount of aura to it, and it's just a nice ballpark. Shout out to Diddy Kong for filling out the form and asking us this question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Diddy Kong, great monkey, that guy. I just want to say thank you for reaching out, taking the time to listen to the show and submitting a question. And I agree with you. I think it's top three. I do think my top three is a little bit different than yours. I think DK Jungle has to be in there. I think Mario Stadium has to be in there. You know, it's a classic. I think Mario Stadium is how you tell the difference between the good Mario Sluggers players and the great Mario Sluggers players. And Brandon and I have been to war in Mario Sluggers a few times. But to me, the greatest stadium is Daisy Cruiser. I think the single greatest game of Mario Super Sluggers in history took place on the Daisy Cruiser. So I'm gonna have to go with that as my goat. But Donkey Kong Jungle, definitely top three once again. Diddy Kong, thank you for reaching out. I almost called him just Diddy, but I don't think we should be doing that anymore.
Probably not. And I might say that I do remember the Daisy Stadium. I mean, can't really call it anything else than probably the greatest comeback in sports history.
Yep,
Absolute war between Patrick and one of our buddies. I believe that would have been in May of 2023 in my buddy's
something around
basement.
there. Yeah,
Uh, Got to give shout outs to I believe it's Wiggler.
the Wiggler. Yep.
Coming up huge for Patrick and Mario Sluggers. I don't know if you want to delve into how
Yeah,
that
so
game played
just
out.
as a brief summary of the game, I was down 7-1, maybe 8-1, uh, bottom of the ninth, end of the game, and we're struggling. We're fighting our way back. Bases loaded, two strikes. So, or I'm sorry, two outs. My apologies. So we're up against the wall, and the Wiggler hits a grand slam. So we had the greatest Mario Super Sluggers athlete of all time in the Wiggler saving the game on the greatest stadium of all time. And what I can only describe as a classic. It's stuck with me to this day. I beat our buddy Ryan, who I'd probably say is better than me at Mario Super Sluggers. So, great underdog win, great showing for the Wiggler, great day on the Daisy Cruiser. And that is why I have it at number one. But moving
That's a
on,
sensational match.
we got a more serious question. We have a routine question asker in Drew L, excuse me, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who submitted a couple great questions for Will Blaylock. So thank you for submitting questions for that episode and this one. And he has two questions. The first one is, do you guys believe Adam Silver forced the Mavericks to trade Luka to the Lakers and then promise them the number one pick in this upcoming year's draft? Definitely an interesting topic. I'm gonna let you take the wheel on this one. See where you want to go.
Loaded question for sure. And I don't care how conspiracy theorist it sounds. Uh, The more I watch, the more I believe it. I think the Mavericks had like a 1.8% chance to get the first pick in the lottery, and they somehow like pull it out of the hat. It looks a little sketchy. The fact that the Mavericks basically get rewarded with a generational player in Cooper Flag after trading their franchise cornerstone to like the biggest market in the league when the Lakers were looking for help, it's fishy. It's suspicious. It looks bad. And I still think Nico Harrison should never be given a GM job ever again. That dude is a clown. Um, but then again, if you read fully into this sort of line of reasoning, if Nico Harrison had a call with Adam Silver and Adam Silver said, "Look, the Lakers are like using the .500 line like a jump rope right now. LeBron's getting older. They need someone to put the ball in the basket. You have Luka Doncic. We'll give you Cooper Flag." If you're Nico Harrison, you get that call. Wouldn't shock me if he was like, "All right, Adam, just you better give me that first overall pick, and I'll send Luka to Los Angeles." And as it played out, Lakers didn't have the greatest postseason run. But if they can hold on to Luka and build around him, they'll be a contender for years to come. And if you're the Mavericks, Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, Cooper Flag is even 75% of the player you think he is. That's an instant playoff team. That puts you right back into the mix for coming out of the West.
Yeah, shout out to the main event. I mean, for Cooper Flag to have as much gravity and weight as he does before the draft has even happened is pretty crazy in my eyes. Um, I'm one of the people that does want to give the of the doubt to Adam Silver and the NBA on this one. And I think just as a fan, you never want to say it's rigged because that does kind of ruin it. But at the
Yeah,
same time, the Mavericks had what? A 1.6% chance to get the first overall pick, and then they somehow eke it out. And on top of that, in recent years, the number one pick really has gone to teams that had lower odds to get it. I mean, I can't remember the last time that a team with top three odds actually got the first overall pick. I know Detroit Pistons fans were crying for a long time because they were in that pool of teams with top three odds for years, and they just didn't get it right until Cade Cunningham. Um, so I don't want to say that it was rigged, um, but I don't know. It's hard to argue against it. It really is.
it is, and I think the one other line of reasoning that could be used to explain the Mavericks getting such a crazy break with the draft odds is Adam Silver. I can't imagine is the biggest fan of NBA teams tanking for the first overall pick. I think tanking really sucks for sports in general because I mean, if you've got an entire city just throwing away a season, deciding they are going to try and lose for an NBA team for 81 games, that can't be good for your fan base. That can't be good for attendance numbers. And if you're Adam Silver, you probably do like this number one pick going to the Mavericks because it sends a very clear message to the rest of the league that just because you lose the most games does not guarantee you get the best pick. And I think from a business perspective, that probably is good. Maybe you'll see teams trying a little bit less to be intentionally bad, which overall I think is better, not just for the league as a whole, but for fans of teams that might not be in the best situation.
Yeah, I agree. I do think tanking was a pretty big issue for the NBA for a minute there. I mean, you look at the process 76ers, and there are other teams you could talk about. So I do think the idea that any team can get that number one overall pick, or any team that is mediocre or worse can get it, I should say, can get that number one pick is pretty important for the idea for anti-tanking ideals. I do think the one thing about tanking is that you never see a player willingly tank. I mean, no one's going to go out there and say, "Yay, I'm excited to lose." But on the opposite end, you definitely have GMs and coaches who are ready to trade guys away or build rotations to lose games to hopefully be better next year. And that just doesn't sit right with me. Um, but as far as this conspiracy theory goes, it definitely could be possible because the one thing we're forgetting is it's been all but confirmed that even years ago, David Stern, the last commissioner of the NBA, had a hand in a few drafts. And I don't know if it's ever come out as officially confirmed. There are definitely some ideas out there, but some of them are pretty concrete. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if more evidence comes out moving forward. Nico Harrison, draft the main event. You can't mess this one up too.
I
Your
hope not.
job is on the line.
His job's been on the line since he traded away Luca. He's got,
Yep.
I really don't see a reality where the Mavericks don't take Cooper Flag. Like it is really hard for me to find a reason for Nico Harrison to mess this up. So if you're Nico Harrison, listen to literally your entire city, listen to every, major, minor sports analyst that's out there. draft Cooper Flag, or you're going to have an entire city of Mavericks fans who are already calling for you to be fired, probably saying something a little bit worse.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Nico Harrison, I don't know how long he keeps his job. We'll see. Moving forward with the show, we do have one question left before I get into that. If you want to be like Andrew L. from Milwaukee or Diddy Kong, we do have a question submission form. It is in our link tree. The link tree is absolutely in the bio of our Instagram, and I believe it is also in the about section of our YouTube. So if you want to submit questions, they can be serious sports questions, they can be inquiries about what we do, they could be silly questions, whatever you want. We'll take a look at them, and if we think they're fun, we'll definitely put them in an episode of the podcast. But moving forward, we have one question left, also from Andrew L. in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he says, "Hey, Pat and Brandon, what would both of your guys' ideal starting basketball lineup and bench look like using only Marvel heroes?" So here's what I suggest we do. I think we, in the interest of time, we only do the starting fives, but I think we do this draft style. Me versus
Okay,
you, snake draft. So let me ask, would you like pick one or would you like picks two and three?
I'll defer and take two and three.
You'll take two and three? Okay.
Yeah.
So I saw this question and I thought a little bit about it. So I do have a game plan going in. And with my first pick, I want to take a point guard. Someone that can both shoot the ball and get it to his teammates. So someone with great leadership skills and someone that knows angles like nobody else in the universe of Marvel. So those are things I'm looking for. And then the other thing I'm looking for is someone that can handle clashing personalities because there are going to be some interesting characters on this team without a
For
doubt.
sure.
Because we're looking to put the best available players on the court. And I also want to set some ground rules in our thinking. If you pick Iron Man, he's not going to be in a suit. Spider-Man's
Oh,
not going to have his web shooters.
what
And
if I pick Toby Maguire?
and standard basketball rules apply. So, no traveling. Fouls still apply. You can't just have like the Hulk punch somebody in the face and obliterate them.
Okay.
We got to play some stand-up basketball here. So, with all of that in mind, my first pick, somebody who can do it naturally, somebody who knows his angles, who's going to have a great jump shot and be a great leader for this team. I'm taking Cyclops from the X-Men.
Could have seen that coming. Um, I can't say that I hate that pick. And I think I had a similar line of reasoning. For my second pick, or for the second pick and my first overall pick, also looked for someone to lead the squad, someone who also has an ability to handle a lot of diverse personalities, and someone who his entire skill set revolves around him throwing things and catching them, and also probably if you're looking at like natural like human talent, the guy is at his peak. So with the second overall pick in the Marvel basketball draft, I'll be taking that scrappy kid from Brooklyn, Steve Rogers, Captain America. I think he'd be a great addition to my squad.
Is he running your one?
He is running my one. He is my point
All
guard.
right. So
6'3", 225, absolute specimen.
So let me ask you this. Before the serum, Captain America was not exactly an athlete. Do you
5'4".
think he has a J?
I'm gonna say yes. I think if
Gonna hope so.
he had to play. If he was playing basketball before he had that serum, he would have had to be real crafty to get the ball in the basket, and probably has great court vision. He's used to having to work hard for these looks. With the serum, fast, strong, incredibly quick reflexes. The guy's going to be a natural fit at the point guard spot.
All right. So what's pick two for Team Brandon LeBlanc looking like?
Pick two, I need someone that can sort of complement Captain America, someone who I think can run a really good pick and roll. And I think I would probably start him at power forward. This is a guy that is as tough as they come, is a great team guy, very humble and down to earth, and calling him an absolute brick wall doesn't even accurately describe him. I will be taking Colossus with the third overall pick. Just, I mean, come on. The dude's over 7 feet tall and he's made out of metal.
Yep, definitely a great pick and something I'm gonna have to combat. So with my next pick, I'm also going to be taking a big. I'm probably going to be putting him in my five, and I need someone that can really hold down the rim, especially against some of these bigger guys from the Marvel Universe. Someone that can play great defense, block a shot, and maybe even stretch the floor a bit. Emphasis on stretch, because at my five, I'm taking Mr. Fantastic.
Wow, good pick.
I think his shot blocking ability is just really going to benefit this team, especially when you see my picks moving forward. We're going to need somebody to sit by the rim and play some great defense. So I'm taking Mr. Fantastic. And while I write that down, my third pick, who I'm going to put at my two, I need someone with just a pure J, somebody that doesn't miss, somebody that Cyclops can get the ball and just understand that it's going to be a bucket from anywhere on the floor. I was thinking about taking Hawkeye here, but I don't know if we've ever seen a Hawkeye with a basketball in his hands. I don't know what his talents outside of the bow and arrow look like. So I'm taking somebody that doesn't miss with anything in his hands, and that's going to be Bullseye out of Hell's Kitchen.
That is a very good pick. Bullseye, definitely a brash personality, but when it comes to accuracy, going to be hard to find someone better than him.
Yeah, that's where I think the talent of Cyclops is really going to come in. He's used to handling these crazy personalities. I think I would be very tempered if I had to deal with Wolverine every day too.
Probably.
So, what's next for Team Brandon?
This is tough. This is tough. And after looking at my first two picks, something I want to have here, I'm going to take someone who's definitely going to be playing the two, someone who I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here after I say it, someone who hails from Europe, known for guys with extreme ball skill like Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, a lot of great ball players out of there. I want someone who's quick, going to be great with backdoor cuts to the rim, and I want someone who's going to be an absolute pain to guard. I will be taking Quicksilver.
I was hoping you wouldn't. I was hoping you wouldn't. He's gonna be almost impossible to guard. Mr. Fantastic's really gonna have to lock in to protect the rim.
Yeah,
That is an unfortunate turn of events for Team Patrick. We were looking at Quicksilver. He was on the board. So I'm gonna have to combat this. I think Quicksilver's definitely gonna be. Oh, it is your pick again. My apologies. My apologies.
oh, oh, this is good.
I was getting too far ahead of
So
myself.
I have two picks left. We're looking at filling small forward and center. Geez, I'm gonna have to think about this one for a second because there are a lot of good names left on the board. A lot of people that I think could fill this role. I think taking Iron Man out of the suit is a pretty big one. Because I mean, he's just a regular dude now. Smart guy, definitely can throw a punch, but if we're talking regular basketball,
Yeah, who knows if
he's
he
like
hoops?
he's like 5'8". He's been rich most of his life. Like he's probably better at golf. Like I just can't see him having anything more than maybe a spot up three. So not gonna take Iron Man. If I'm looking at putting an absolute beast in the paint, to complement Colossus, couple of good names here. I might have to go with the Incredible Hulk. I mean, when it comes to absolute bruisers at the five position, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who can put a body on him and get him out of the paint. Absolute lob threat with the ability to jump literally out of the building. And I think the only thing you're going to have to worry about is Captain America making sure he doesn't pick up a tech.
Yeah, I do think the personality of the Hulk is going to be interesting. You've kind of put me in a tough spot with Colossus and the Hulk. While Mr. Fantastic definitely has the length to contend with them, does he have the pure power? I'm not sure. So what I'm gonna do with my next pick, I got my last two picks coming up here, and then you got one more. So I think with my first one, I need to just combat power with power.
Mm.
Um, and I think he might have a little more poise and a little more skill than the Hulk. So the matchups will be interesting. I'm expecting a crazy hook shot out of this guy. We're taking the ever loving blue eyed thing off Yancey Street.
Oh,
That's
very
gonna be a
that's
war.
that's a rivalry right there. Hulk
That
Hulk
is
versus Thing. Clobbering Time versus Hulk Smash. Like that's a big time marquee matchup.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, that's for sure. I think it's good team synergy with Mr. Fantastic. You got guys that have saved the world together, and I want to continue that trend. And I also want to take a bit of a sleeper pick, definitely a dark horse in a draft that considers all Marvel characters. But when you have a speed demon like Quicksilver who's making twos, I want to combat that with more people that'll just be making threes. We got Cyclops and we got Bullseye absolutely raining it down from beyond the arc. And I want to extend that with a guy from the X-Men. Again, bit of a sleeper pick, but his power is luck. So he's not missing. He's not missing the jump shot. I'm taking long shot from the X-Men. He'll have that synergy with Cyclops. He knows the leader of this team. So we have a couple duos that play with each other. The one and only problematic personality is going to be Bullseye. And again, I mean, Cyclops deals with that smelly Wolverine guy. So I think he'll be able to handle it all right. But so that rounds out my team. You got one pick left. I want to see what you're going to do to combat the 3-point barrage coming from Team Patrick.
Yeah, definitely a lot of long range sharpshooters on that squad. And when I'm looking at filling out this small forward position, I'm looking for someone who can do a little bit of everything, someone who's been around the block for a while, someone who's, I believe several thousand years old. Do I know if he can play basketball? No. Do I believe his skill set is perfectly adaptable? Yes. Strong, tough, warrior mentality. Um, I'm taking the God of Thunder. I'm taking Thor Odinson to fill out my small forward position. The dude's at least 6'6". Like, I believe he's the perfect fit for that position. Works very well with Captain America, and hard to find someone with more determination and grit than the literal Norse God of Thunder.
All right. That scares me a little bit. That team's got some power. I think it is going to be a question of, you know, your team's toughness and explosivity versus my team's 3-point ability and passing. For summary, on Team Brandon, we got somebody whose player comp can only be LeBron James. The perfect leader, does everything you need him to on the court. Steve Rogers, Captain America. We got one of the fastest men, probably the fastest man in Marvel. I could be wrong. If anyone knows it more, you can correct me. But Quicksilver, someone who's only going to be throwing the hammer down. That's just what he does. Thor, the God of Thunder. A man made of metal, not a brick wall, but a steel wall, Colossus, and the Incredible Hulk. And then on Team Patrick, we've got one of the greatest leaders of all time, maybe the greatest leader of all time, Cyclops. We've got the greatest long range shooter in the business, Bullseye. Long shot, Dark Horse, another great long range shooter. We've got our crowd control for Colossus and the Hulk. We've got the Thing. And we've got the greatest stretch five in the business, Mr. Fantastic. So if you're on YouTube, land yourself in the comments. Let us know who you think's going to win. We might have to address this in the next episode. I believe Spotify also has comments. So if you want to drop a comment there and let us know who you think's going to win, feel free to do that. Brandon, unless you have anything else to say, I do believe that this is going to do it.
Yep, I can what I might do is throw up a little poll on the Instagram, see what our listeners and our followers on Instagram think about this matchup. Honestly, if we're talking about hypothetical basketball games, this would be absolute cinema. Just
Yeah, this is going to
incredible.
7.
This is a 7 game series if I've ever seen one. This has got just so many incredible stories. You've got Captain America versus Cyclops, the leaders of Marvel's two biggest superhero teams. You've got The Thing going toe to toe, fist to fist with the Hulk. You've got Mr. Fantastic just being literally all over the court at once. And I got to say, getting Quicksilver at my shooting guard spot was a huge,
Yeah, that
huge pickup for
hurts.
my team.
That hurts. I'm gonna have to hope my threes outweigh those twos from Quicksilver.
We'll see what the listeners and the viewers have to think about that.
Yep. All right, so that's going to be all from us with the play-by-play. We hope you enjoyed. We'll definitely be looking to have more guests on soon. Down the road, we'll be looking to have Will back as well. So if you enjoyed our episode with Will Blaylock, definitely let us know. And make sure to check out the Instagram, which is the play-by-play_pod. No caps, no spaces. If you want to get yourself involved in this poll that's going to be going up, and that'll do it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the play-by-play with Patrick and Brandon. Make sure to check out our Instagram and stay on the lookout for new episodes on YouTube or Spotify.